Thank you so much for being here. Today is the second seminar, and next Saturday will be the third and last one. Remember, the time of the seminar is 11 GMT, not 11 a.m. London time. It's 12 London time and 11 a.m. GMT. So, Vic, welcome once more. Thank you so much for being with us here again. And I pass the words to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Erica. Good evening to you. It's evening here, or good afternoon, or good morning. Last week, we touched on the principles of the practice of meditation regarding the higher and lower nature of a human being. Today, I'd like to touch on the relevance of daily living towards more effective meditation. For those among us who have been trying to meditate, we invariably find that the things that bother us during meditations are things that have happened to us during the day. And hence, the more disturbing the events of the day are, the more difficult it is to go into meditative silence. So today, I'd like to touch on this facet and then explore what are the factors that we should look into so that whether it is during meditation time or during daily life time, we would be able to attain a certain degree of equanimity. In the end, the purpose of meditation is to attain equanimity in daily life, not just during the meditation period, but in daily life. Because if it doesn't bring about equanimity in daily life, then something's wrong. It is not working. So let me now share with you my screen. Is it okay now? Okay, let me just. Let me just review a bit what we have covered. We mentioned that the purpose of meditation is to have equanimity in daily life, and then secondly, to attain self-transcendence. But the second one is not possible unless we have attained the first one. The first one, equanimity, is what almost everybody, or practically everybody who likes to practice meditation, that's the aim. But the second one, to attain self-transcendence, is the aim only of a very few people, a very small percentage who go into meditation. Equanimity in life is not simply about meditation, but also a balance between inner peace and outer effectiveness, work, relationship, duties, goals, and so on. And transcendence is something which goes beyond the daily affairs of life, in the awakening of intuitive perception, and then the transcendence of the ego. We mentioned last time that meditation proper is an activity of the two levels of the human mind, the lower mind or concrete mind, and the abstract level of the mind. And these two correspond to the two facets or aspects of meditational practice. The first one of which is to concentrate or to focus. We called it taming the mind. And after being able to tame it, then we are able to go into meditation proper. This is the dharana of Yoga Sutras and the dhyana of Yoga Sutras. Now, the stability of our meditation as well as concentration depends upon certain other factors. These are not only the busy contents of the mind, the jumping monkey mind that we have, but also our desires and habits, as well as our environment. And in meditation, we are trying to awaken a higher portion of our consciousness uh, in order to be able to develop an inner will. The higher level of ourselves would include intuition, spirituality, and egolessness. But for now, we will emphasize the contrast or the conflict, constant conflict between the inner will and the outer tendencies, the uncontrolled thoughts, the desires, the habits, the physical body. Not only in meditation, but also in life, we have this polarity, the polarity between what is growing inside of us, and then the habits that have been developed through the years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or longer, that have been very difficult to change because they have already been ingrained in our system. So the things that bother us would now, we'll find, would belong to this lower part. That's the source of disturbance. The physical, the etheric, the pranic imbalance, the emotional, and the ordinary thinking mind. And we have to focus on this. We'll have to attend to this in order that meditation can be more effective. Now, if we look into the lower part of ourselves, the personality part of ourselves, we'll find that there are problems arising from these three levels. For the subtle mental, there is much less problem. There are still things to be attended to when we go to the subtle mental, but most of the problems belong to the lower. On the physical etheric, for example, we have problems about attachment to pleasure, avoidance of pain, having tension and stress, and also illness. On the emotional level, we have things like excitement, liking, disliking, anger, fear, resentment, anxiety, conflicts, guilt, and so on. And even those who have been meditating for a long time, these things continue to bother us. Then on a personal mental, these are things that we have been mentally associating with. Whenever we see something, immediately thoughts come in. When we wake up in the morning, immediately thoughts come in, and they are automatic. They come from our habits, our memories, our standard attitudes that produce standard judgments, then worry, dependence, attachments, and so on. So we'll have to deal with this one because they are directly influencing the effectiveness of meditation. Now, related to this are things that involve our behavior and our connection with the outer world. For example, whenever we have financial instability, then these levels, especially emotional and mental, would become worried and agitated. And hence, it is something that cannot be ignored. Most of us, or almost all of us, are not monks who don't have to worry about this. Monks who belong to monasteries or to ashrams and so on, that we don't have to worry about that. But we are not like those. So we are living in a almost like a worldly life, and we'll have to attend to this. Then social issues. We are active in the world, and hence there are social issues that create conflicts. Then ethical issues about our actions with the world. Then relationship issues. Then problem-solving need. Then work effectiveness, stress, and illness. These things, whenever they are not harmonized, then they just create internal disturbance, and meditation becomes frustrated time and again. Now, there are two facets in looking into this, in looking into the relationship between meditation practice and daily life. The first one is the need to develop self-awareness on a daily basis. This is the foundation of the other facets. It is the internal and it's the core issue whenever we'd like to be effective in the outer life. Then after doing so, then we look into the integrated life, the integration of outer things, outer life with the inner purpose or direction. In looking at the integrated life, we like to look at, do we have a wholesome philosophy of life with clear values? This is something that many people have not really thought about, and hence they're constantly bothered by conflicting values in life. Then we need to remove unwholesome reaction patterns that have been developed through decades, through 20, 30, 40 years. Then, once we do that, then we are on the road to self-mastery, the mastery of especially of our lower self. And then we need to work out effectiveness in relationship, because relationship is an important part of inner peace or inner disturbance. Then we need to develop competency, and then the ethical life. Let me go into these one by one. First, let us go into self-awareness, because that's the core, the essential quality that will help us be effective in looking at the integrated life. Now, in our self-awareness, this is usually what we have whenever we are aware. There is a field of attention, but also what is called peripheral awareness. For example, right now, you're looking at the computer, you're listening to me, but at the same time, you're also aware of your surroundings. If there is something, a sound that happens, or maybe a tapping sound or a strange sound, you will notice it and will attend to it. When people are driving a car, when we are driving a car, we can talk with people, but at the same time, there is something else within us that can continue driving, knowing when to step on the brake, when to turn, when to slow down, and yet our field of attention is focused on the conversation with somebody in a car. So we have these two levels. One is the field of attention, the center of our attention, but at the same time, peripheral awareness. This peripheral awareness is very important, because the field of attention itself cannot attend to many things. It is usually just one thing at a time. But because of peripheral awareness, we're able to do many things at the same time. Now, how do we compare this ordinary field of attention and peripheral awareness? You'll notice that if I become drowsy, sleepy, when I become drowsy, the field of attention shrinks. I no longer notice that there are people who are walking around, and even sounds, I would tend to ignore it. And then when I'm almost asleep, it is so limited already that even when people are walking in front of me, I don't even notice it anymore. And then when I'm asleep, then gone. Even the field of attention is gone. And so I'm not aware anymore of specific things or of peripheral things. Now let's go back to normal consciousness. The center is the field of attention, and the surrounding field would be peripheral awareness. During meditation, what happens is that there is an expansion of both the field of attention as well as peripheral awareness. The things that we don't notice within us, we begin to notice when we are meditating. For example, normally, when a person is upset, the person is not even aware of the discomfort in the body whenever a person is upset or afraid. But whenever we go into quiet, into silence, into meditation, we begin to notice these things. And there is an expansion of consciousness. This is the source of the term expansion of consciousness, because indeed, when we begin to increase our awareness during meditation, then we are able to notice things more directly, and then the peripheral awareness also expands. However, if it is the first or second or third time to meditate, after the meditation period, then it goes back to the original condition. I'm again absorbed with things. I am unconscious of many things. I go back to the automatic mode in living. However, if I keep on doing meditation day after day, week after week, something else happens. After many meditations, the field of attention as well as the peripheral awareness don't go back to its original dimensions. It expands. In other words, even during daily life, there is now a wider span of our peripheral awareness. We become aware whenever we are irritated. We become aware when we are disturbed, when we are worried, when there is pain, when there is stress, when there is tension. And this is the aim, or one of the effects of meditation that is so valuable, such that in daily life, we begin to become more aware and begin to take charge. Okay. Now, in addition to meditation, which expands our self-awareness and peripheral awareness, we must do certain things in daily life which will sustain such self-awareness. There are many, many approaches. I'll just mention a few, and you're probably, for those, for example, who have taken courses in mindfulness, you would have heard of a lot of approaches in order to be more mindful every day, while walking, while eating, while talking on the telephone, and so on. There are 4 approaches which I'd like to mention to you and suggest to you that you experiment with, because they help us sustain more and more permanently this expanded level of self-awareness, especially peripheral awareness. The first one is to make deep abdominal breathing as our normal breathing. If you have noticed cats and dogs when they are sleeping, you notice what moves in their body. It's not their chest, but it's their stomach, the belly. It moves up and down, not the chest. If you watch babies breathe while they are sleeping, you will notice it's not the chest that moves up and down, it's the belly. In other words, normal breathing is abdominal breathing. Yogic breathing is also abdominal breathing. Abdominal and then the chest, but it covers both. Whenever we are tense, whenever we are stressed, you will notice that our breathing becomes shallow. We only breathe here to the upper part of the body, and we don't notice tension anymore. But when we do deeper abdominal breathing, like when we do some exercises, either in Tai Chi or in yoga, you'll begin to notice that you notice tensions in parts of the body, like hands, like legs, shoulders, and so on. In other words, whenever we do abdominal breathing, we become more aware of the body. And the body is the center of tension and later stress. Whenever we are not aware of developing tension and chronic tension, it develops into stress. And stress is the beginning of emotional distress. Hence, if we wish to avoid emotional and psychological distress, we go into an awareness of our body. Because when we become aware of our body, we become more aware of our feelings. I'll talk a bit about that later. But I would suggest that this exercise be done more and more often. The exercise is, before we breathe in, we expand our abdomen. Let it expand, and then you breathe in. And then you fill in, including the upper chest. It expands. And then when we exhale, we collapse the upper chest and then the abdominal area. And then again, we expand the abdominal area and then breathe in. Sorry. When we practice this, we'll notice that we become more relaxed. Anytime we do this, we become more relaxed. However, when we start doing this practice, the tendency is for us to go back to our normal, shallow breathing. And hence, it is helpful that if we are starting this, try to have some kind of a reminder to ask ourselves whether we are breathing abdominally or chest breathing. For example, suppose you use a watch. I don't use any watch, but suppose you use a watch. Whenever you look at your watch, make it also a reminder to ask you, am I breathing abdominally or not? If not, then do again abdominal breathing. So if you look at your watch or your phone, let's say 10, 20 times a day, then it will be a reminder of checking whether you're doing abdominal breathing or not. The person who helped me very much in this was another theosophist. He passed away already. He was a very good coach on these things. And whenever we meet, because we meet very often, he would watch me and then say, Vic, you're not breathing abdominally anymore. And then I would be reminded. And that, because we meet very often, he reminds me very often. And I'm very grateful that he helped me in this aspect. So make abdominal breathing our normal breathing. Watch, when this has become a habit, you watch people when they are asleep. In other words, ask somebody to watch you whenever you're sleeping and see whether it's your belly moving or not. If it's your belly moving, then you have already acquired abdominal breathing as your normal breathing. The second one is to try to be aware of how you speak, whether you speak from the stomach or from the throat. Whenever we speak from the throat, it is usually because there is tension. And when there is tension and we are not aware of it, then we are no longer self-aware in a deeper sense. What is meant by speaking from the stomach? If I speak from the throat, this is the sound that comes out of me. And whenever I speak this way, I feel that there is a tension happening in me. On the other hand, if I just speak normally and it will come from the stomach, I would not constrict anything on my throat. Then I would become more aware of myself whenever I am tense. Because if my voice pitch goes higher, then it means that I'm becoming tense. But if I'm conscious of speaking from the stomach, then I will find that I'm more relaxed. How can we practice ourselves in speaking from the stomach? There's a simple way. Try to pronounce words without constricting the throat. And how do we do that? Try to, for example, for vowel sounds, try to pronounce words beginning with H, but without the H sound. For example, if you say home, you will notice your stomach moves because you cannot pronounce the H sound by constricting your breath. It becomes om. When you say home, you have to loosen your throat, and then you'll notice that your stomach moves. Now, when you say home, remove the H sound. It becomes home. Not om, but home. A, B, C, D. Not A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. And you will notice that the stomach moves. Try to, probably many of you already have this habit, but if not, then try to test and check yourself whether whenever you're speaking, it is coming from your stomach and not from your throat. And then if you're able to make this a habit, you will notice when you are tense. This will help you become self-aware of the body. Now, why is it that we are focusing on the body? Because it is the very first arena for self-awareness. Become aware of the state of the body. Tension, pain, stress, discomfort, and so on. So become aware of the body. The third one is to think with the spine. If you look at something, like something in your computer, and focus your mind or concentrate on it hard, even for a few seconds. You concentrate on an object, a letter on the screen, and concentrate on it hard. You will notice that there is a tensing of the forehead. Usually during seminars, I will ask everybody to go into this exercise. But because we are a bit short of time, so I'll just explain it to you, and then you experiment on your own. If you focus on anything in front of you and focus hard, you will notice there's a tension on your forehead. In fact, a lot of people would tend to knot their forehead like this whenever they are doing this. And you'll notice a lot of people already have wrinkled eyebrows here or forehead because it has become a habit. Even when they are not concentrating on anything, there is already a wrinkle here and a tension here. Now, you look again at the same object by being aware of the back of your head. No longer concentrating hard with your forehead, but be aware of the back of your head. And if you do this for, let's say, a minute or two, you will notice that the frontal part of your head becomes more relaxed. And then you become aware of the back part. Now you do this a third time. Try to be aware of your spine when you're looking at anything. Right now, for example, you're looking at the computer, maybe you're looking at the image. Try to look at the image and yet be aware of your spine. Then you will notice that if you had tension a few seconds ago, you will tend to relax your body. You can still listen to me and understand what I'm saying, but at the same time, there is now greater degree of awareness of your physical state of your body. In other words, when you now become aware, not just of the spine, but your whole body, it can be done. This is the peripheral awareness. You can listen to people, you can talk to people, but at the same time, there is a peripheral awareness that makes you aware of your body, of your reactions. When you're upset by what the other person said, you'll become aware of this. But when the mind is so focused here in the frontal area, then when something is happening in the body, you don't notice it anymore. So experiment with this later. Then the fourth one is to pause before acting. This is similar to what in Buddhism is referred to as mindfulness. Before we can exercise, we do exercises like, for example, if you're going to pick up your phone, before you pick it up, be aware that you're about to pick up. And then be aware of the movement of your hands in picking up the phone, touching the phone. Just be aware of it. So it is not a pause in time, but a pause in awareness. Suppose you're going out and you'll have to open the door. Before you touch the knob to open the door, just be aware that you're about to touch and open the knob of the door. And so when you're touching it, you're aware, and then you open it, you're aware. You close it, you're aware. At the beginning, it may look like it will slow you down, just like when we are doing walking meditation in Buddhist practices. The walking becomes so slow that it may take 10 minutes for you to reach from here to a few feet ahead. But this is because we are trying to develop this peripheral awareness. But later, as we keep on doing this, we'll notice that it becomes automatic, that whenever we are doing something, there is automatically an awareness that we're about to do so. And whenever we are able to do that, you'll notice we will never panic anymore. Because panic is the opposite of mindfulness. A panicky state of mind is the opposite of a mindful or a self-aware state of mind. Suppose there's danger, somebody shouts fire. A person who lacks self-awareness will immediately jump up and almost panic. Some people who have fear of fire will freeze and cannot even do something anymore. On the other hand, a person who has this peripheral awareness, somebody shouts fire, he becomes immediately aware that he doesn't see the fire yet. He doesn't know where the fire is, and it may be just for 1 second. Then you think about, okay, is it in the house? Is there smoke already? And then you will have now an awareness to make a decision. Is there anybody in the house that I should help? But the person is panicking already will not have the time. The reaction is automatic, and the person will panic and run out of the house, neglecting that there's a baby or a mother or a grandmother in the house that they should help. So whenever we develop this capacity to pause in awareness before acting, then this peripheral awareness becomes strong. So these are examples of how we may approach, how we may live daily life by developing more and more the capacity for self-awareness and developing an expanded peripheral awareness even when we are not meditating. Later, as we become more aware, then we will now be able to make daily life an arena for intuition. When people react to things, for example, they don't pause anymore, but rather just react and take action. When a person is saying something harsh to us, then we immediately feel angry, irritated, and then we answer back. Whenever we have this deeper degree of self-awareness, this peripheral awareness, somebody insults us, and then we have a reaction, but that peripheral awareness will make us become aware that I just reacted. I'm irritated now. I'm angry. I want to get even with this person. I want to say something sharp. We now become aware of that one. And then we now have the capacity for deciding, shall I talk back or shall I just be calm? But for a person who lacks peripheral awareness, then it will become automatic. This arena for daily life in becoming calm and aware is an avenue for being in touch with our deeper intuitive capacity in daily life. In meditation period, it is easier to do this because we are really quiet, we are calm. But in daily life, it is very difficult. So inner self-awareness creates greater awareness of deep conflict and warns us again of unwise action. Whenever we are aware, for example, um, I would answer back and quarrel with the person. But because of inner awareness, I'm now conscious of the fact that my anger is prodding me to act. And yet at the same time, I know that this may not be a wise thing to do. So there's an inner conflict now. And this awareness will help us, will give us the opportunity to decide whether we should do it or not. It is this inner awareness of something that may tell us that don't do it. You remember the famous story or statement of Socrates in the dialogues of Plato about the demon or the daemonon, that constantly warns him about something he should not do. It never tells him what he should do, but it would warn him about what he should not do. To my understanding, this demon of Socrates is not uh, an, an external entity like an angel or something, but rather his higher self, such that when we become aware of it and then we're about to do something, there is something in us which tells us, oh, it's a moment, consider it for a moment. So in daily life, this capacity becomes strengthened. And then, not only during meditation, but even during daily life, we will have now a better arena for training our own intuitive perception and in making decisions. I think I mentioned last time that during meditation, we find that this capacity for inner perception becomes heightened. That I even would suggest that you keep a notebook near you or your phone such that when these insights and perceptions come, then you can write them down and develop them later. But then the next step is to be able to do this in daily life. And this requires self awareness. Okay. Now let's go into the integral life, the integrated life. We mentioned that whenever we have not been able to integrate our daily life, then we have not been able to integrate meditation with our daily life, then meditation will not be very effective. It is like cleaning it for 30 minutes and then dirtying it up for the next 16 hours. A major source of mental disturbance is our daily life. Conflicts, unresolved worries, ineffectiveness in things, whether it is work or other things, feeling of guilt, relationship problems, and so on. And unless we are able to address this, they will constantly be a source of disturbance in our mind and will frustrate the best efforts we have in meditation. So, what can we do about this? We have mentioned that there are a few facets which we should look into, which will help us prevent all these disturbances in daily life. Let's go into it one by one. The first one is a wholesome philosophy of life and clear values. In my experience conducting seminars for educators, students, average people, I noticed that a lot of people have not devoted time to look into their deeper philosophy of life and to clarify their values. They oftentimes assume the outlook of life given to them by society, even the values of society. For example, when they choose their career, they will listen to the values and the recommendations of society about what I should prepare myself for when I'm studying in school or in college, what I'll become when I become grown up. They are usually the values of society, and hence we have adopted the philosophy of life of society, or it can be our religion. So we need to clarify this one and review all these philosophies as well as review our values. So, for example, what is the purpose of life? Every year, I would conduct sessions with young people in their career planning. And oftentimes, when I ask them, all right, what would you like to be when you are 30 years old or 40 years old? And usually, the first thing that comes from them would be, well, to be able to be financially stable, to be able to help my parents financially, and so on. Now, these are social goals that have been put there by society. But the purpose of life is not simply financial goals or even social acceptance. We have to look at life from a wider and deeper perspective, because life is not simply about financial stability or social acceptance. Another one, I'll just give some examples about this because this facet is quite wide, but which one it is ignored, then we have a narrow outlook, life view, and distorted values. Another example of what we should consider in looking at our philosophy of life is the existence of the law of cause and effect. That whatever it is that we will, whatever life we live in the future, will be the result of whatever we have sown in the past. And that if I'd like to live a certain kind of life, I must plant the seeds of that kind of life as early as I can. Because once I sow the wrong seeds, then it's very hard to correct the harvest, what we will harvest in the future. If I grow up under circumstances of conflict and tension, and I learned from my father that when you have a problem, you can use your anger, you can shout at people, then I will adopt this one and not realize that I'm creating more conflicts in my life in the future. Then another example is that we eventually begin to realize that selfishness is a source of unhappiness, conflict, and other problems in our relationship with people and the world. And that eventually the quality that will give us inner peace and fulfillment and happiness is a quality of unselfishness. Selfishness is a kind of absorption with our own needs, and we become bothered continually whenever we are trying to satisfy things inside of us, because that's never ending. Then the importance of kindness and compassion. Then principles of soul growth. This area, a wholesome philosophy, is a very broad, wide, and deep thing that it is something that each one of us must look into. That's the reason why in the Eightfold Path of Buddhism, the first one is right view, because it becomes the foundation of what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. So I'll just touch on this as an area in life that we must look into, because all the other things that follow will be a result of this philosophy and clarification of values. Second, even if we have clear values already, what we want to do, where we want to go, but there are many things in our lower personality that cause us a lot of conflicts, unhappiness, and other things. And we have to remove these unwholesome patterns. For example, you'll notice that people are habitually tense and habitually stressed. This is a habit, and they go home already tired and not able to even have quality time with their families because they don't know how to handle their stress. Fear is another one. There are people who throughout their lives have a lot of fears, minor and major. Not only fear of things like dark or death, but also fear of what people will say, fear of failure, fear of what not meeting the expectations of other people. The number one fear of people is fear of rejection. And this is one of the worst sources of unhappiness in people when we are not aware that we have fear in us. We have to remember that babies have only two fears that are natural: fear of loud sounds and fear of falling. All the other fears that we have are acquired by us, acquired because society taught us these things. And in the same way that we have acquired it, we can also remove them. Anger, the pattern of anger. We grow up seeing our adults using anger as a way of reacting or responding to situations, and they develop the same pattern of responding to situations. But anger is a very dangerous thing. Whenever there's anger, we cannot love. Why? Simple. What do we want to do when we are angry with people? We want to hurt them. What do we want to do when we love people? We want to make them feel comforted and be happy. So the effect of anger and love are opposite. When I'm angry, I want to hurt you. Then do I love you? If I want to hurt you, I don't love you at this moment. Maybe I think I love you, but right now I want to hurt you. I don't love you. So whenever we have these things, it shuts off things, other things that are wholesome. Fear shuts off equanimity, happiness. Anger shuts off love. Depression, being the capacity, the tendency to be hurt, resentment, guilt, aversion. These are things which, when they are present in us, then we are not calm. We are bothered. We have conflicts. And all of these belong to the lower triangle, our personality, and they were developed by past habits and upbringing and social conditioning. How do we deal with this? In the self-transformation seminar that we regularly conduct in the Theosophical Society, we do it by two approaches. The first one is what is called scanning, and usually this is addressing stress. Whenever you feel stressed, you use a scanning and you will notice that your stress level diminishes to zero. For the others, we use self-awareness processing. We'll not go into this, but I'll just explain the principle. Whenever we feel stress, fear, anger, depression, and so on, there is a reaction in our system, emotionally and also physiologically, where there's an energy surge. You notice that when you're afraid, there is a tension in the body. This is the energy surge in us. And so long as this surge is still there, we are still afraid. But when this energy surge flows away, then we're no longer afraid. We're back to normal. Whenever we feel anger, for example, you will notice that there's a surge of energy. The surge of energy will include our chest and our head. That's why we feel that there's heat in the head and there's pressure in the head. People who are constantly angry usually have pressure on the head and they have constant discomfort in the head, including headaches. And then when this energy goes to the hands and arms, then you find that you will form into a fist. And what do? You want to bang the table or hit somebody. You don't normally do this or feel this, but when these energy surges come up, then you feel this. You want to hurt people. When we are not aware of it, then these energy surges would stay. In other words, they will still be there. That's the reason why some people, when they're upset, it ruins their entire day from morning till afternoon because this energy is still there. But when we know how to do scanning and how to do self-awareness processing, then this is resolved easily. This is resolved in a few minutes. Because whenever we are angry and we notice this energy surge, there's a surge. It's now in my chest. My chest is thumping. My arms are tight. Then I go into deep abdominal breathing and feel it. Not remove it, but just feel it. Feel the thumping of the heart. Feel the tension on my head. Feel the tension on my hands. Just be aware of it. And as I breathe out, I be aware of my arms and legs. When you do this, you will notice something which after, let's say, 3 or 5 breathing cycles, this tension will begin to diminish and normalize. You did not stop it. You did not force it away. It just flows and then it normalizes. Then stress will disappear in a few minutes' time. The same thing with fear or anger, especially anger. But with fear, then it may take some time because the reaction pattern may be very deep and strong. In our schools, in all our schools, we teach all the teachers and all the students how to deal with fear, in addition to stress. In fact, all of these things, how to deal with them. So, for example, every year we have a youth camp where all the high school and college students gather together for 4 days and we teach them these things. Somebody is afraid of, let's say, the dark. Then we teach them how to use awareness processing in order to use a breathing. Then, after several cycles, they can enter a dark room and still be relaxed. Previously, they would shudder and shake whenever they go near any place dark, or snakes, or cockroach, or public speaking, and so on. And after they do this processing and scanning and processing, then they'll be able to do public speaking, whereas before they cannot even talk because something blocks them in their throat. But after a few cycles of processing, they will just volunteer that, okay, I can speak after that. So we have been doing this for more than 20 years already, and so it's doable. It is not suppressing these things, it is to become aware of them and to allow them to flow until it's gone. All kinds of fears can be dealt with this way. The anger pattern in a person can be dealt with this way. Depression is resolved this way. In fact, my first occasion for discovering this approach was because I was depressed. I was undergoing severe depression when I was still a student. And it was at the time that I encountered the book of Krishnamurti, and then I learned how to deal with depression. And since that time up to today, this has been 40 or 50 years, I've never been depressed anymore. Never. Whereas at the time, it was a severe depression that even suicidal thoughts would come in. My ambition was lost. I was not motivated anymore to pursue my studies. And then after it's gone, no more. It never bothered me. So these 8 states can be handled effectively without suppression. And this is through self-awareness. Then, once we have our values, clear philosophy, and then directions in our life, then we are now ready. And then we have also worked out our push buttons. These are the stress, tension, fear, anger, and so on. Then we are now ready for a greater degree of self-mastery. When the higher mind becomes more active, we develop impersonality and we develop supremacy of will over the desires and habits. And this is symbolized by the 6-pointed star, where the higher triangle is now over the lower triangle, and a person is now integrated. The lower triangle is still there. We cannot remove it. Our personality will always be there so long as we are human beings. But it's no longer the one dictating our actions. It's now the higher triangle, this impersonal self, which is in charge of the lower. And when we are clear about our highest values, then it will now be the one dictating what should I desire, what should my habits be, what should my reactions be to circumstances and people and things. Then when we are able to do this, we can also improve now relationships such that it will become effective and no longer a source of conflicts. To be able to develop warm and caring relationships. Psychological studies have shown that warm and caring relationship is a very, very important factor in human happiness. Whenever this is present, then the likelihood is that the person will be happier than the average. Then we're able to do genuine listening and to be assertive in communication, at the same time be harmonious. These are brought about whenever we have self-awareness with some knowledge of certain approaches of communication. Then we develop objectivity and fairness in dealing with people, and we become effective and respected because of this. Then competency. Competency are of different levels, meaning if I'm a very incompetent person, I cannot have peace of mind because things in my life are not working because I'm not competent in basic things. For example, I want to have job and have income, but I'm so incompetent that I keep on bungling my work and I keep on losing jobs. And when I apply, I lose the job again. So I'll not have a peaceful life, a fulfilled life because of lack of competency. And therefore, it is not just about inner peace and quiet in meditation, but also the basic development of key competencies in life. And there are several levels: basic competency, work competency, professional competency. Okay, let me just go back. What are these? Basic competency are things that involve things like, for example, we in our schools we emphasize language and mathematics, and also logical thinking, and all these things. Work competency means that I have developed the habits that whatever work is given to me, I am, for example, result oriented, not just task oriented. I just do things just because I'm doing things, but without care for the result. That's incompetency in work. So, uh, being able to meet certain deadlines, being able to do something when we need to do something. So, if we don't have those kinds of habits, then we will not be effective in work. Professional competency would be competency in our professions. If I'm an accountant, I should be good in accounting. If I'm going to be a doctor, I should be good in medicine. So that's the more specialized one. But the two first one, the basic and the work competency, would be very important. Coupled with the other factors, emotional, psychological, then we will find that we will become effective in our workplace, in whatever it is that we'd like to do in life because of these combinations. Then the ethical life. Whenever we have problems in our ethics, we will encounter conflicts later because it will boomerang back on us. If I tend to harm other people for my own self interest, then it will come back to us karmically and produce discomfort or an uncomfortable situation. When I'm not being fair and objective in dealing with people, meaning I'm unfair and I am biased, then I will also, this is also unethical, and I will just have problems in my relationship with people or in dealing with circumstances. Being helpful to others is part of our view on the ethical life. So, these, for example, if we are able to attend to these things, we will find that eventually there will be less and less conflict and adversarial situations in our daily life. Okay. So, these then are areas in daily life that if we couple it in meditation, we'll find that there will be more peace and equanimity in daily life, which will make our meditational practice more effective. So, in self awareness, we create expanded peripheral awareness that will engender a better intuitive perception, not just in meditation, but in daily life. Then, in integrating our life, we develop a wholesome philosophy of life with clear values. We remove unwholesome reaction patterns, then develop self mastery, effective relationship, competency, and ethical life. All right. So we can go